Well, Ben Carson has really stepped in it now. Listen to what he's saying.
My own personal theory is that Joseph built the pyramids in order to store grain. Now, all the archaeologists think that they were made for the pharaoh's graves, but, it would have to be something awfully big when you stop and think about it. And I don't think it would just disappear over the course of time to store that much grain. And when you look at the way the pyramids are made,
Yeah, look at the way they're made, Numbskull. There's hardly any open space on the inside, even though it's big on the outside, kind of like a 1978 Ford Granada, as I recall.
with many chambers that are hermetically sealed, they would have to be that way for a reason.
Okay, so as I pointed out, Maeve, that was 1998, but he was asked about this recently, and what's happened today?
Right,
Some people believe in the Bible, like I do, and don't find that to be silly at all, and believe that God created the earth and don't find that to be silly at all. The secular progressives try to ridicule it anytime it comes up, and they're welcome to do that.
This isn't the first time Carson has gone off into la-la land and believed in all kinds of crazy stuff that is without support. And I don't just mean religious stuff, but just stuff that is, shall we say, easily disproven. For example, in this movie produced some years ago when he was younger. Take a look.
To understand a history that is not a history based in slavery, but a history based in royalty.
Return to Glory, the powerful stirring of the black man, based upon the book endorsed by such esteemed men like Bill Cosby, Julius Erving, Tony Evans, Tony Campolo, Ben Carson, Ivan Van Sertima, Bishop Eddie Long, and many others, narrated by Adrian Branch.
Everybody always wants to know, what did my ancestors do?
This whole movie is part of the afrocentric business, claiming that ancient Egypt was ruled by black Africans. In spite of the fact that we've had thousands of years of painted sculptures, bas-relief and three-dimensional sculptures, showing the various colors of the people of ancient Egypt. At the time the movie was made, I don't know if they had the DNA tests, but the notion that the rulers of ancient Egypt were black Africans is total fiction. The DNA of contemporary and historic mummy DNA of Egyptians shows quite a mixture. It's not by any stretch mostly sub-Saharan or black African, as this movie would have you believe. While Dr. Carson doesn't talk in the movie about that issue, he does endorse the book upon which this movie is based, and he spends most of his time propping up black invention mythology. Some bits of reality and truth, but a whole lot of gross distortion, which I'll show you now.
It was Jan Matzliger, a black man who invented the automatic shoe lasting machine. It was Charles Brooks, a black man who invented the street sweeper.
This claim is like many others that he and other people make regarding black inventions, most of which are gross distortions or outright inventions. What happens is every time an African American inventor files a patent, someone comes along later and says, oh, he's got a patent for this device here. That means he invented the original one of it. When in reality, it can be one of thousands of patents related to a railroad coupler or a traffic light, whatever, but people looking for history that they like will think that it is the original invention of that device, and it simply isn't.
It was Frederick Jones, a black man who invented the refrigeration system for trucks, later adopted for airplanes, boats, and trains.
Lots of other refrigeration systems had been around for decades before this man got his patents, even though he was a very important inventor in his own right.
It was Garrett Morgan, a black man who invented the traffic signal.
This is a picture of a traffic signal that existed in London, England, before Garrett Morgan was even born. The traditional red, yellow, green traffic light that we use today was already on the streets of Cleveland and Detroit, where Dr. Carson is from, before Garrett Morgan applied for his patent, and Garrett Morgan's invention was never manufactured and looks much more like the old London traffic signal than it does a modern traffic light. It had no effect on the development of modern traffic lights at all.
Oh, he also invented the gas mask that saved lots of lives during the war.
Garrett Morgan did not invent any gas mask at all. Various forms of respirators had been around since antiquity. In the 1840s, various patents were issued for respirators, some of them with activated charcoal filters. Garrett Morgan's invention had no kind of charcoal filter. It wasn't a gas mask. It was intended to prevent smoke from entering the breathing apparatus. That's all. Garrett Morgan called this a safety hood. It wasn't a gas mask.
And while you're talking about the war, Henrietta Bradbury, a black woman who invented the underwater cannon, made it possible to launch torpedoes from submarines.
This woman had 2 patents issued, one for a loader for torpedoes. The patent was issued after World War II. There had been submarines, torpedoes, and submarines launching torpedoes since the 1800s. She had nothing whatsoever to do with the development of torpedoes or launching them underwater. Nothing.
And while you're talking about black women, you can talk about Madam C.J. Walker, a black woman who invented cosmetic products for women of dark complexion, was the first woman of any nationality in the United States to become a millionaire on her own efforts. And you'll walk past the hospital, you can talk about Charles Drew and his contributions to blood banking, the understanding of blood plasma. Daniel Hale Williams, the first successful open heart surgery in the world.
He never performed an open heart surgery ever. He performed the second in the world pericardial surgery, the first in the United States. A great accomplishment in itself, but like many inventions, it's been grossly exaggerated by some people with their own racial or political agenda.
Lewis Latimer, who was the right-hand man of Thomas Edison, a black man, who came up with the filament that made the light bulb work for more than 2 or 3 days.
Edison's filament and patent for the light bulb came before Latimer ever went to work for Edison. Latimer's improvement was the use of a paper envelope to hold the filament during the manufacturing process to keep it from being damaged during the manufacturing process.
About Andrew Beard, the automatic railroad car coupler, which spurred on the Industrial Revolution?
No, he didn't. From the time the automatic railroad car coupler was invented in 1874, 76, something like that, from that time to the turn of the century, 1900, there were 8,000 patents issued for various alterations and proposals to change that system. His was one of those 8,000. He did not invent the automatic railroad car coupler.
Or Elijah McCoy, automatic lubrication system for locomotive engines. And he had so many great inventions, people would say, is that a McCoy? Is that the real McCoy? Which is where the term comes from. One of the greatest inventors in the history of man. And people don't know that he was a black man.
The term real McCoy has nothing to do with this inventor, and it was in use for apparently generations before he began inventing. Well, if you believe that the world is 6,000 years old and you believe in talking snakes and talking donkeys, there's no telling what else you might believe in.